pass from like here to that house starch molecules, which is just big sugars, and it's nibbling the ends off. Blink, and tossing maltose behind it. Blink, blink, and it's slow. Where alpha amylase is taking that big starch molecule and like basically cutting it in half. Technically, he's not cutting it in half, but that's the easiest way to think about it. Cuts it in half, and it's going to go around the entire mash and break everything in half. And once it's done, it starts taking the halves and making them quarters. And it's going to go around until all the halves are quarters, and it's going to go around and take all the quarters and make them eighths. And if you give it enough time, it'll be pure maltose. But if you arrest it, which is what we're doing here, if you arrest it, then you preserve those longer chain, higher molecular weight sugars, which is the yumminess, right? That's the yumminess. So that's the key to mashing out. And I hear people. It's like the world's most interesting man. I don't always mash out, but when I do, my beers are malty, right? You know what I mean? I mean, that's exactly right. But and sometimes it may not be necessary, but I almost always do it. But I don't always mash for 25 minutes. I don't always mash for an hour. I don't always do anything. Every beer is going to have its own prescription, and that makes it correct. And I try not to make it like overly complicated, but I also try to be in control of every aspect, and from the water to whether I'm accentuating hoppiness or I'm accentuating maltiness by my chemicals. And you understand the whole why we add calcium sulfate and why we add calcium chloride. You understand what the calcium does, the role the calcium plays?
I heard something about how a certain mineral accentuates like hop bitterness or accentuates maltiness.
Correct. So that is not the calcium. That's the calcium, the sulfate in the gypsum, or the chloride in the calcium chloride. But the calcium itself is performing a completely separate function. Do you know what that's doing?
No.
Do you use like a 5.2 stabilizer?
No.
Do you use food grade acid, like phosphoric acid?
No.
You don't address your pH at all?
No. I just let it rip.
Okay. So long story short. Yeah. Have you ever heated up a pan of water and brought it to a boil, and then you notice there's these little white things floating around, almost just that you precipitated some type of it's what called you get on your shower door, right? Yeah. That comes from hard water. So what that is that there's carbonate available in the municipal water supply, and in our area, the metro feed has a lot. It's very high in carbonate. Because a lot of our waters come from mountain sources, and they leach through the rocks and then they pull out all these. It's very high in mineral content. Right. So the carbonates are in there, and that's what's called temporary hardness. And the carbonates are disassociated, so they're floating around, but they love calcium. Like, you can't believe how much they love calcium. Calcium loves carbonate. But at room temperature, they can't molecularly bind. But when the water's heated, it drives a catalyst. There's a catalyst created that the calcium and the carbonate bind to each other molecularly and become calcium carbonate.